There exists among us a rare group of women who hold a kind of intelligence that cannot be measured by traditional standards. It is an unseen wisdom that moves quietly, like hidden rivers beneath the surface of human awareness. You recognize her when you meet her, even if you cannot explain why her presence stirs something deep within you, or why her silence communicates more than 1,000 spoken words. This subtle form of intelligence has long captured the attention of those studying depth psychology. In my own work, I've observed that some women possess what I call a superior feeling function, a psychological ability that goes far beyond ordinary emotional sensitivity. These women do not simply feel more intensely. They perceive through layers that remain unseen to most people. They interpret the energetic patterns of others, understand the symbolic language of the unconscious mind, and move through life guided by signals that modern science has yet to define. What I want to highlight are 6 qualities that set these spiritually perceptive women apart from those who merely imitate spirituality or confuse emotional reaction with true insight. These traits operate in the quieter regions of consciousness. They are often misinterpreted by a world that favors data over intuition. Yet for the women who embody them, these traits function as both a strength and a responsibility. Calling that asks them to move between the visible and invisible while staying rooted in everyday life. The first hidden trait appears in their remarkable ability to sense energies that others overlook. When she enters a room, something subtly changes. The atmosphere shifts not because of what she says or does, but because of the presence she brings. I came to understand this through my concept of the feeling function at its most refined expression. Unlike sentimentality or emotional impulsiveness, this advanced form of feeling works like a precise instrument, detecting the faint vibrations of sincerity, falsehood, sadness, and joy that exist within every interaction. These women act as living indicators of the human emotional climate. They notice the quiet tension between couples at a dinner table, sense the unspoken grief carried by a cheerful neighbor, and pick up on the hidden motives behind a friendly smile. This is not paranoia or imagination. It is pattern recognition functioning at a frequency most people do not have access to. Their nervous systems have been shaped, whether through years of hypervigilance, earlier trauma, or simple inheritance, to perceive signals others never detect. The ancestral influence is significant. Many of these women bear the energetic imprint of grandmothers and great-grandmothers who developed this intuitive radar out of necessity, women who had to read the emotional environment of their homes for safety, who learned to sense danger in a husband's footsteps or opportunity in a neighbor's expression. This inherited wisdom moves through generations like a current of knowing. It surfaces in daughters who often feel overwhelmed in crowds, drained after social gatherings, or unusually certain about people they have just met. But this gift is not without difficulty. To see clearly is to see what others prefer to ignore. To feel genuinely is to notice performance and pretense everywhere. These women often end up feeling isolated, not because they choose solitude, but because of the intensity of their perceptual clarity. They become mirrors that reveal truths others are not prepared to confront. They speak insights that may sound like criticism to those still lost in comforting illusions. Have you ever entered a room and instantly sensed something was off, even though everything appeared normal? Have you ever felt a sudden discomfort around someone, only to later realize your instinct was right, even if you couldn't explain it at the time? This is the first glimpse into what can be called energetic literacy, a skill that turns these women into quiet guardians of emotional truth. The second trait reveals itself through their deep connection with what I refer to as the collective, unconscious and expansive reservoir of archetypal patterns and universal symbols that influence human experience across cultures and eras. Most people experience brief moments of access to this deeper layer through dreams or rare flashes of insight. However, spiritually perceptive women remain consistently connected to this source of wisdom. They dream in symbols that later reflect real-life situations, encounter synchronicities so frequent they challenge statistical explanation, and receive intuitive signals that prove surprisingly accurate. I observe that some individuals possess what I call a more permeable ego boundary, allowing them to tap into collective knowledge without losing their sense of self. These women demonstrate this uncommon ability. They act as interpreters between the symbolic world and everyday life, turning the abstract language of the unconscious into practical understanding. A dream involving water might reveal emotional healing. An unexpected interaction with a particular animal may serve as a reminder of personal strength. A recurring number sequence can affirm alignment with the right direction. This connection to the collective unconscious heightens their sensitivity to meaningful coincidences. While others overlook these events as random occurrences, these women identify them as signals from a deeper intelligence, shaping events beneath the surface. They learn to rely on these synchronistic cues, moving through life with a sense of timing and flow that appears extraordinary to others but feels entirely natural to them. They understand that the universe communicates through subtle signs and symbols, and they have developed the inner capacity to listen. This phenomenon reaches beyond personal clarity and becomes a form of service to the collective. These women often seem to appear in the right place at precisely the right moment, offering exactly what is needed not through careful planning, but by following subtle currents of meaning. They act as bridges between the material and spiritual realms, translating universal wisdom into human understanding through their presence, words, and very essence. Their lives unfold like mythic stories, filled with encounters that seem orchestrated by a benevolent cosmic intelligence. This leads naturally to their third trait, one that can perplex those around them: a deep cultivation of what I call sacred solitude. They choose isolation, not out of misanthropy, but from a place of wisdom. They recognize a truth that extroverted cultures often struggle to accept. The most profound transformations occur in silence, away from the influence and energy of others. Their solitude is never loneliness. It is intentional work for the soul. My understanding of individuation emphasizes the necessity of stepping back from collective influences to uncover one's authentic self. These women intuitively honor this process, creating space for their inner voice to rise above the noise of social expectations. They clearly distinguish between solitude that nurtures and isolation that harms, consciously opting for the former rather than succumbing to the latter as a form of punishment. When they retreat, it is not an escape from life. It is a deeper immersion into it. The sacred quality of their solitude becomes evident in how they utilize their time. Instead of distracting themselves, they engage in practices that strengthen their connection to inner wisdom. They journal, meditate, create, or simply sit in silence, allowing the experiences of daily life to settle so clarity can emerge. These periods of withdrawal become fertile ground for creativity and spiritual insight. When new perspectives emerge and their understanding of existence is profoundly reshaped. Yet, this natural rhythm of retreat and engagement often confuses friends and family, who may misinterpret the need for space as rejection or sadness. These women must learn to honor their energetic cycles without guilt. Recognizing the depth of their inner world requires regular retreats into solitude. They understand that constant social engagement drains spiritual energy and diminishes their ability to genuinely serve others. For them, solitude is not isolation, it is a form of self-preservation that ultimately benefits everyone around them. The fourth trait highlights perhaps the deepest expression of their spiritual intelligence, the ability to convert personal suffering into universal wisdom, a process I call the transcendent function. These women do not merely endure hardship, they transform it. They willingly descend into their own inner darkness, confronting fears and challenges that most avoid for a lifetime, and emerge carrying insights and treasures only accessible through such profound struggle. This mirrors the archetype of the wounded healer, the one who gains the ability to help others precisely through first-hand experience of suffering. I observe this pattern often in my patients, especially women who have endured trauma or loss. Rather than remaining trapped as victims, they turn their pain into compassion and insight, contributing to collective healing. Their wounds become their credential, their suffering a qualification to guide others on similar journeys. The transcendent function operates by balancing opposites until a new third possibility arises. These women embrace both light and shadow, joy and grief, strength and vulnerability. Instead of choosing one side over the other, they embody a sacred integration of these contrasts, giving rise to a higher level of consciousness that transcends internal conflict. Their wholeness becomes a guiding light for others, struggling with inner fragmentation. This transformation demands immense courage and commitment to truth over comfort. They must fully experience their emotions rather than bypass pain through premature forgiveness or forced positivity. Healing, they discover, is not the absence of wounds, but the conversion of wounds into wisdom. Their scars become sacred markers, guiding both their own growth and that of others seeking similar transformation. With this wisdom comes responsibility. Having turned lead into gold, having walked through fire and emerged refined rather than broken, they become accountable to collective healing. Many are drawn to serve as counselors, teachers, artists, or healers, offering their transformed pain as a remedy for a suffering world. The fifth hallmark is not something spoken, it is felt in their very presence. I call this therapeutic presence, a form of communication rooted less in words and more in the resonance of being. For them, silence is never empty. It carries profound eloquence. Often their greatest gift is not advice or solutions, but the ability to sit with another, witnessing their reality without judgment, interference, or attempts to fix what is unfolding. This form of communication bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to the soul. When such a woman enters a space marked by hardship, her presence alone conveys, it is possible to endure. It is possible to emerge from darkness while retaining light. She does not need to recount her struggles or dress them in inspirational slogans. Her grounded whole, an unbroken existence is itself living proof that transformation is real. Understanding the power of language, she never uses it carelessly. Words are tools, not noise. Each syllable is deliberate, chosen for clarity rather than excess. She knows that speech can heal or harm, create or destroy. While many scatter words loosely, she speaks with intention, understanding that restraint brings resonance. Her silence carries depth, unspoken compassion, and meaning far beyond casual chatter. This discipline extends to how she manages her energy. Often learned through trial and error, she recognizes that sensitivity requires boundaries. Not every room deserves her full openness, nor every conversation her deepest attention. By respecting these natural limits, she can give generously without depleting herself. Like a skilled musician, she knows when to let sound fill the space and when to rest in silence. It is no surprise that people often feel uplifted even after brief encounters with her. She functions like a human tuning fork, resonating at higher frequencies and aligning others through unconscious attunement without a word. She reminds others of their inherent capacity for balance, clarity, and peace. The final quality emerges not in her actions, but in what life brings to her. These women seem to inhabit a realm where meaning gathers. Coincidence becomes sacred, and synchronicity is the rule, not the exception. They do not chase mystical experiences, they attract them. Their consciousness operates as a beacon, drawing experiences, people, and opportunities that foster their growth and awaken those around them. This phenomenon, often called synchronicity, represents meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by chance. While others search desperately for signs, they simply live in alignment. The signs follow. Their lives read like sacred texts, with chapters orchestrated by unseen intelligence, arranged with precision and purpose. This magnetism stems from what can be described as autonomous complexes. In most people, these inner patterns operate unconsciously, projecting disorder into relationships. In spiritually intelligent women, however, these mechanisms are refined. Their inner life becomes an antenna tuned to truth and purpose. Yet this gift demands discernment. Not all that glitters is divine guidance. Not every coincidence signals destiny. They learn to distinguish genuine direction from ego-driven desire, sacred timing from personal impatience. With clarity, they navigate life like master sailors, moving with trust and discernment, their presence naturally stimulates change. Transformation is not forced, it occurs simply through their being. They awaken questions others never knew they carried. Their authenticity acts as a mirror, prompting others to confront their masks. Their presence casts a light that inevitably challenges those around them. This influence arises not from intention, but from resonance. As these women mature, a paradox emerges. The greater their abilities, the more ordinary they seem. What once appeared extraordinary becomes natural. The dramatic fades into simplicity. Their gifts are no longer seen as symbols of superiority, but as tools for service. This journey leads to what we call the return to simplicity. Having navigated the full spectrum of their inner world, the shadows and the heights, they arrive at a profound ordinariness. Their power no longer demands attention. It speaks quietly. It manifests not in spectacle, but in authentic presence. Recognition is no longer sought. Validation is no longer needed. Their confidence stems from within, from the deep knowing that by simply being whole, present, and attuned, they are fulfilling their purpose. The impact they leave may never be measured by applause or numbers. Instead, it appears in subtle, unseen ways. The hearts they soothe, the lives they gently shift, the souls they remind of their own depth. This may represent the highest form of spiritual intelligence, the awareness that true influence is often invisible, that real authority comes from love, not control. Through example, rather than command, they become living prayers, walking meditations, quiet embodiments of grace in a world fixated on noise. The solitude that once felt like isolation becomes sanctuary. The sensitivity that once seemed like a burden becomes their greatest strength. The wisdom that once alienated them now serves as healing for a weary world. They learn to trust the intelligence flowing through them, even when it cannot be explained. They come to see their uniqueness as design rather than defect, embracing the mystery of their calling even if it cannot be fully understood. If you have felt this resonance, know that you too carry part of this lineage. Your sensitivity is strength, your solitude is restoration, and your scars are sacred marks of wisdom. This path is not easy. It demands courage to trust what others cannot see, faith to follow guidance beyond logic, and strength to remain authentic in a culture that prizes conformity. Yet, for those who walk it, there is no alternative. This intelligence is not optional, it is your essence. The invisible qualities you bear are not accidents. They are callings, assignments, from the deeper intelligence that shapes all existence. Trust the river flowing through you. Honor the sensitivity that defines you. Embrace the solitude that shapes you, and transform the pain that refines you. Let your silences speak louder than words, and welcome the sacred encounters that come your way. If these words resonate with you, take a moment to pause and reflect. Which of these qualities do you recognize most clearly within yourself? How have they influenced your own journey? Your story matters. Your experiences validate others. Your courage to be visible inspires countless women to recognize their own hidden strengths. The journey doesn't stop here. There are deeper layers of the feminine psyche to explore, more hidden gifts to honor, and greater wisdom waiting to emerge. As I have often emphasized, the greatest privilege in life is to become your true self. I've also said that the most important task for any individual is to achieve wholeness, integrating the fragments of the psyche into a complete self. For the spiritually aware women we are studying, this wholeness is not just a personal endeavor, it becomes a living transmission. Their very presence challenges society to remember what has been forgotten. That depth, meaning, and authenticity are not optional luxuries, but essential for the soul. While our initial exploration identified 6 invisible traits guiding their journey, we now turn to what unfolds when these traits are fully lived over time. How do they evolve? How do they influence relationships, society, and the spiritual climate of our era? What responsibilities accompany such gifts? Every woman must eventually confront her shadow, the hidden, often denied aspects of herself. True transformation cannot occur without this descent. For spiritually intelligent women, this confrontation is unavoidable. Their heightened awareness makes denial nearly impossible. They sense the fractures, unresolved traumas, and unconscious compulsions, not only in others, but within themselves. Spiritual intelligence requires turning the mirror inward as much as outward. They must engage with what they fear, envy, or resist. Their sensitivity, while a gift, ensures they cannot sidestep their wounds. The shadow calls, and they must answer. Yet unlike those who crumble under their pain, these women learn to transform suffering into alchemy. Pain becomes a crucible of fire in which illusions are burned away and their essence clarified. They emerge not as flawless beings, but as integrated individuals capable of holding contradictions without breaking, of living with paradox without fleeing. This alchemical journey is what equips them to guide others. It is not theoretical knowledge, it is embodied wisdom, earned through tears, sleepless nights, and choices made at the edge of despair. Their understanding of healing comes not from books, but from having lived it deeply. With relationships serving as sacred mirrors, one of the most demanding arenas for these women is relationships. Their sensitivity does not allow them to skim the surface of connection. They perceive the currents beneath words, the intentions behind gestures, and the unspoken but binding agreements that shape interactions. For these women, relationships are never casual. They are laboratories for truth. Friendships, romances, even brief encounters serve as opportunities for deep learning. While others may settle for polite pretense, they perceive everything with clarity. They can distinguish genuine affection from calculated strategy and recognize authentic intimacy versus mere performance. This often creates tension. Partners may label them as intense, overly analytical, or unwilling to let things slide. In reality, it is not judgment that unsettles others, it's clarity. These women hold up mirrors. Not everyone is prepared to face their reflection. When relationships align with authenticity, they thrive. Bonds transform into more than companionship, becoming sacred spaces where two souls grow together. Trust deepens, creativity emerges, and a profound sense of security develops, not because challenges vanish, but because honesty is non-negotiable. This clarity brings the burden of authenticity. Loneliness, as I have observed, stems not from being alone, but from being unable to express what matters most. For the spiritually intelligent woman, this tension is constant. She craves community yet cannot compromise her truth for the sake of belonging. Her life may appear solitary, her boundaries misunderstood as coldness, her solitude mistaken for rejection. In reality, she is safeguarding her authenticity. She knows that betraying her own knowing would mean losing the unique gift she was born to carry. The burden of authenticity often leads to misunderstanding. Her refusal to engage in shallow games, her reluctance to go along with falsehoods, her choice to withdraw rather than conform these decisions may cost her friendships, status, or love. Yet over time, she discovers that the cost of compromise far exceeds the cost of standing alone. One of the most remarkable aspects of her journey is how synchronicity becomes a guiding principle. Synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, the convergence of inner and outer events in ways that defy probability but carry profound significance. For these women, synchronicity is a natural part of life, not a rare occurrence. They notice recurring patterns that others often overlook, the symbols and dreams that mirror waking experiences. The stranger whose words answer an unspoken question, or opportunities that appear just when they are ready. Living in sync with these signs requires trust and a willingness to act even when logic hesitates. This is not superstition, it is alignment. They live as if life itself is speaking to them because, in a sense, it is to outsiders. This way of living may seem unusual. Friends might call it luck, fate, or coincidence. But for these women, it feels like a dialogue with the universe. They understand that meaning is discovered, not created, and when it is recognized, it guides the path forward as their journey unfolds. Many are drawn into roles of services, healers, teachers, artists, or guides. Remarkably, their service does not rely on performance. They need no stage, spotlight, or title. Their impact flows through ordinary moments: a conversation at a bus stop, A glance across a crowded room, a few well-timed words. These small gestures ripple outward in ways they may never fully see. Their presence alone becomes a ministry, offering healing without spectacle. True transformation, I have observed, is marked by simplicity. The spiritually intelligent woman embodies this truth. She does not announce her wisdom. She lives it. In doing so, she inspires others to connect with their own inner guidance. Every era brings its own cultural blindness. In our time, it is scientific materialism, the belief that only what can be measured or dissected is real. Spiritually intelligent women, across every age, stand apart because they embody depth, what cannot be quantified. This creates tension. The world prizes speed, yet they move to the rhythm of intuition. Society celebrates visibility, but their most important work unfolds quietly. While external achievements are applauded, they measure life by inner growth. To live this way is to exist in paradox. Slightly out of step with the prevailing tempo of the age, yet this very dissonance gives them strength. They remind us that life is not a race, but a journey. That true value lies in authenticity, rather than appearances. And that wisdom resonates quietly rather than loudly. Generational transmission. It's impossible to discuss these women without acknowledging the lineages they embody. Their gifts seldom emerge in isolation. They are often inherited, shaped by generations of women who were compelled to perceive the unseen. Grandmothers who sensed danger in subtle changes in a husband's tone. Mothers who recognized betrayal in the silence between words. Ancestors who survived not through force, but through keen intuition. This ancestral wisdom does not disappear. It persists encoded in nervous systems, whispered in dreams, carried in the subtle instincts of daughters, who may not even know the stories yet, still bear their imprint. A spiritually aware woman often realizes that her perceptions are not entirely her own. They echo the lives that came before her. She carries memories of survival strategies, residues of trauma, and blessings of inherited strengths, passed down like sacred heirlooms. When she learns to engage consciously with this inheritance, it becomes a profound source of power. She evolves beyond individuality, becoming a living bridge between past and future. Her healing ripples backward and forward, transforming family lines and reshaping destinies. This is what I describe as the work of the collective unconscious, the awareness that our personal psyche is intertwined with larger subsidiary generational patterns. The paradox of visibility there is a paradox in the lives of these women. On one hand, their gifts draw attention. People sense that there is something extraordinary about them. They become sought after for guidance, comfort, or simply the presence they radiate. Yet often they crave invisibility, a chance to move through life without constantly responding to others' needs. This creates a lifelong rhythm between showing up and withdrawing. At times, they step forward, speaking truth where it is urgently needed. At other moments, they retreat into solitude, protecting their inner energy from being drained. Over time, they understand that this cycle of emergence and withdrawal, visibility and invisibility, is not a flaw, but a natural design. Like the moon, their presence waxes and wanes. They learn to honor their energy cycles, giving when replenished, retreating when it's time to restore. To live as a mirror means to endure projection. Others see in them what they cannot acknowledge in themselves. Some idealize them, calling them angels, healers, or saviors. Others resent them, labeling them as too sensitive, intense, or different. Both responses overlook the reality. The spiritually intelligent woman is profoundly human. She carries contradictions and vulnerabilities, yet her presence stirs the unconscious in others, making her a canvas for unrecognized desires and fears. This dynamic, familiar in therapeutic settings as transference, also appears in families, friendships, and workplaces. These women must learn to identify projection for what it is: a reflection, not reality. Confusing projection with truth risks either inflating themselves beyond sustainability or collapsing under criticism that isn't theirs. When they master this discernment, they gain freedom. They no longer bear the weight of others' expectations. They simply stand as themselves, offering truth without demand, presence without performance, and power without domination. Perhaps the most radical element of their intelligence is how they embody power. In a world that equates power with control and force, they demonstrate another model. Their strength flows through presence, inspiration, and resonance. They do not impose, they invite. They do not manipulate, they illuminate. This is not weakness, but a profound form of strength. True authority arises from alignment with the self, the archetypal center of wholeness beyond ego. When a woman acts from this place, her influence radiates naturally. She does not need to assert it or fight for it. People feel it. Such power may not seize headlines or governments, but it changes lives quietly. It shifts conversations, subtly reshaping the world around her. It plants seeds of courage and awakens possibilities that once seemed out of reach. Subtle, yet unstoppable, it brings a return to the ordinary. After years of navigating between worlds, something remarkable occurs. These women begin to appear ordinary not because their gifts have diminished, but because they have integrated them so deeply that there is no need to dramatize them. The extraordinary becomes natural. The mystical becomes part of daily life. They may garden, teach, raise children, run businesses tasks that seem ordinary, but their awareness remains attuned to the unseen. Their hearts aligned with deeper rhythms. This is what I mean by individuation, not an escape from the world, but a fuller engagement with it. The goal is not to float above life in constant transcendence, but to walk it with grounded wisdom, embodying the eternal in the midst of everyday existence. Thus, the spiritually intelligent woman lives her paradox: extraordinary yet ordinary, visible yet invisible, burdened yet blessed. She embodies a wisdom the world desperately needs. Even when it cannot name it the integration of wholeness, I emphasize that individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole is not a luxury, but a necessity for the soul of a spiritually intelligent woman. It is not an abstract idea. It is her daily reality. She exists at the intersection of light and shadow, constantly integrating what others prefer to ignore. Her intelligence is not measured by facts collected or skills mastered, but by her ability to weave together all parts of herself, the intuitive and the rationale, the sensitive and the strong, the joyful and the grieving. She does not seek to eliminate contradictions, but to embrace them until a deeper harmony emerges. This is why she often defies others' expectations. Just when people think they understand her, she shifts. Just when society tries to confine her, she expands. She embodies what I call the transcendent function, the psyche's mysterious ability to create new possibilities. When opposites are held together without collapsing, invisible influence arises. Perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of her path is that her greatest influence is often invisible. She does not need to build empires or seek the spotlight. Her power flows through subtler channels, the words spoken at the right moment, the presence that calms chaos, the silence that reveals truth. The spiritually intelligent woman may never be chronicled in history books, yet her impact spreads through families, communities, and generations. A child grows freer because she refused to perpetuate silence. A friend finds courage because she modeled authenticity. A partner awakens because she insisted on depth over performance. In a culture obsessed with visibility, she teaches that the unseen is equally real and powerful, like roots beneath the soil. Her influence sustains life even when unrecognized. For too long, sensitivity has been mistaken for weakness. But she and women like her demonstrate that sensitivity is a profound form of intelligence. One who perceives what lies beneath the surface. One who hears the quiet murmurs of the unconscious. One who senses the future before it unfolds. Their purpose is to restore sensitivity to its rightful place as a strength. To show the world that empathy is not weakness, that intuition is not illusion, and that stillness is not idleness. Their lives become living counterpoints to a culture obsessed with speed and noise. They remind us that wisdom often arrives in silence, that guidance comes through subtle signs, and that healing requires presence more than words. Yet such intelligence carries responsibility. To see deeply is to hold truths others prefer to ignore. To feel deeply is to risk emotional exhaustion. To live authentically is to face misunderstanding or rejection. The spiritually intelligent woman understands that her gifts and her responsibilities grow together. She cannot use her perception for manipulation. She cannot exploit her sensitivity for ego. She cannot retreat into victimhood when the world misinterprets her. Instead, she cultivates discernment. She establishes boundaries. She chooses service without seeking to save, presence without needing performance. She embraces the paradox of being both strong and vulnerable, both ordinary and extraordinary, returning to simplicity. At the journey's end, what remains is not drama, but clarity. She has navigated complexity, shadows, projections, and paradoxes, emerging into a gentler, more centered way of being. Her life no longer needs to prove anything. Her wisdom no longer demands attention. She embodies what I call the self, the center, that unites all opposites, the quiet axis around which life revolves, to the outside world. She may seem ordinary, living without titles or recognition, yet within her exists a natural harmony that radiates effortlessly. She has become, in essence, a glimpse of the eternal and the temporal, a living invitation. If you see yourself in these words, know this: you are neither alone nor mistaken. The traits you carry are not accidents, they are your assignments. The sensitivity you once resented is your compass. The solitude you feared is your sanctuary. The suffering you endured is your initiation. The world may not always comprehend you, yet it needs your presence. You are a source of healing. Your authenticity provides direction. Your unseen wisdom shines as a light in a culture overwhelmed by noise. Do not shrink yourself to fit into spaces that cannot value you. Do not apologize for perceiving what others refuse to acknowledge. Do not silence the voice within that speaks truth. Trust the insight that flows through you. Respect the calling that has chosen you. Embrace the mystery that shapes your journey. This journey has led us through 6 subtle traits: the descent into shadow, the transformation found in suffering, the paradox of visibility, and the quiet influence of spiritually aware women. What I realized decades ago still holds. True intelligence is not measured by awards or accolades, but by the soul's capacity to maintain wholeness in a fragmented world. If these words resonate with you, we'll take a moment to reflect. Which traits feel most familiar within yourself? Which ones are seeking fuller expression? How might your life transform if you fully trusted this inner wisdom?